In 2004, Chelsea spent £24 million on Didier Drogba. A striker who had never won the Ballon d'Or, wasn't the fastest player in the world, and definitely wasn't the most expensive signing that summer. Yet, somehow, this man became the player that legends feared most, the striker who made defenders have nightmares, and the icon who proved football could stop wars. Most footballers join clubs and adapt to the system. Drogba, he became the system. He didn't just score goals, he collected moments that altered history. He didn't just win trophies, he transformed the very DNA of one of England's biggest clubs forever.
Drogba! Brilliant.
Today we're going to show you exactly how one man transformed not just Chelsea, but the entire Premier League, and inspired a whole continent in the process. Because this isn't just a story about a striker scoring goals. This is the story of how Didier Drogba proved that some players change clubs, but he changed the club. Before 2004, Chelsea were good, but they weren't great. They were a strong domestic side, sure, but when it came to the biggest moments, they always seemed to fall just short. Something crucial was missing, that killer instinct, that ruthless mentality that separates the good teams from the legendary ones. Then came Roman Abramovich, with his billions ready to spend whatever it took to make Chelsea champions. The Russian billionaire had grand ambitions, and he brought in Jose Mourinho, the self-proclaimed special one. However, even with all that money pouring in, something was still missing. They had one of the world's best managers, but they didn't have their warriors. What does it take to transform a team from competitors into conquerors? They needed someone who could grab the biggest games by the throat and refuse to let go. They needed someone who could transform their mentality from a team that competed to a team that conquered. They needed someone who thrived when the lights were brightest. And Jose Mourinho knew exactly who that someone was, and he was playing for Marseille. When Jose Mourinho identified Drogba as his warrior striker, he wasn't just buying goals, he was buying a complete revolution. Chelsea's then record £24 million investment in 2004 changed everything immediately. Mourinho's 4-3-3 system needed a spearhead who could lead them to their first league title in 50 years, and Drogba delivered exactly that in his first season. The drought was over, Chelsea were champions again. But here's the thing, it wasn't just about the goals, it was about how he scored them and when he scored them. While other strikers might score hat tricks against weaker teams, Drogba saved his best for when it mattered most. He didn't just slot into Chelsea's system, he became the system in the biggest moments. How do you measure a player who doesn't just perform but completely rewrites a club's identity? The numbers tell the whole story, 157 goals and 341 appearances in his first spell, plus 7 more goals and 40 appearances during his second spell, making him the club's top foreign scorer and 4th all-time overall. Furthermore, he holds the club record for most goals in cup finals with 9, and most goals in European competition with 36. As the Premier League's own Hall of Fame write-up labels him, the archetypal big game player. His mix of physical power, hold-up play, and clinical finishing transformed Chelsea's entire identity. They went from being talented challengers to ruthless winners who delivered when the pressure was highest. But what happened at Stamford Bridge was remarkable, yet it was nothing compared to what he was about to do to the entire Premier League. Before Drogba arrived, the Premier League had never seen anything quite like him. Sure, there were powerful strikers who could bully defenders, and sure, there were technical strikers who could find the net with precision. But no one had combined brute physical dominance with technical brilliance quite like this monster. He was 6 foot 2 inches of pure muscle and skill, capable of holding off 2 defenders while finding the top corner with either foot. The proof is in the performance. 104 Premier League goals and 254 Premier League appearances, 4 Premier League titles and Golden Boot winner twice. And what makes this even more impressive is that these Golden Boots came in different eras, showing he could dominate as the league evolved around him. What does it mean when you become the blueprint that every striker after you gets measured against? Additionally, perhaps the most telling moment came on March 10, 2012, when Drogba scored his 100th Premier League goal against Stoke City, becoming the first African player ever to reach that milestone. When the Premier League inducted him into their Hall of Fame in 2022, they described him as capable of scoring every type of goal. As a result, after Drogba, the league measured center forwards not just by goals scored, but by whether they could decide titles, whether they could rise when everything was on the line. He redefined what it meant to be a Premier League striker. But while he was busy rewriting English football, something extraordinary was happening thousands of miles away in the Ivory Coast. Here's where Drogba's story becomes something beyond football, something that transcends sport entirely. On October 8, 2005, after Côte d'Ivoire qualified for their first ever World Cup, Drogba did something that would change his country forever. As cameras rolled and the nation celebrated, he dropped to his knees on live television and made a plea that stopped a war. He begged for a ceasefire in his war-torn homeland, his voice breaking with emotion as he called for peace.
Le seul pays de l'Afrique qui a toutes ses richesses ne peut pas sombrer dans la guerre comme ça. S'il vous plaît, déposez tous les armes.
In 2007, he took it even further, helping bring a national team match to Bouake. This is what turning football capital into political and social capital looks like. And it's rare for any athlete. Consequently, his global influence earned him recognition, a WHO ambassador for sports and health in 2021, and he was named to Time 100 in 2010 for his influence beyond sport. When you become the first African player to reach 100 Premier League goals while simultaneously using your platform to broker peace in your homeland, you're not just opening doors for future African players, you're redefining what it means to be a global icon. And all of this was building toward that one night in Munich when everything would come together in the most dramatic fashion possible. Munich 2012 wasn't just a Champions League final, it was the moment that created a before and after, not just for Chelsea, but for how the entire football world viewed them. That 88th minute equalizer didn't just level the score, it announced to the world that Chelsea belonged among Europe's elite. No longer were they just a domestic power with European ambitions, they were champions of Europe, with Drogba as the face of that triumph. This transition had ripple effects that spread everywhere. His elite success at a global super club helped normalize the idea of African strikers as title-deciding number 9s in England's top flight. What happens when one man's success opens doors for an entire continent? Meanwhile, his foundation and ambassador roles amplified a model of African athletes as nation builders and health advocates, not just sports icons. But perhaps most importantly for Chelsea, he created an emotional bond between club and fans that's rare in modern football. The connection went beyond wins and losses, beyond contracts and transfers. Even today, when Chelsea faces adversity, when they need inspiration, they look back to Drogba's goals and his legacy. He didn't just win trophies for Chelsea, he changed the club's DNA forever, making them a team that believes they can win anything, anytime. So, when you look at everything, when you see the complete scope of his influence, one thing becomes crystal clear. Here's the truth about Didier Drogba's legacy. He never won the Ballon d'Or, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. But that individual trophy doesn't define greatness. Because while other players collected personal awards, Drogba collected something far more precious. He collected moments that altered history. The winning penalty that followed, struck with the composure of a man who knew his destiny. The 9 goals in 9 major finals made him Chelsea's ultimate finals specialist. The televised peace plea that helped heal a nation torn apart by war. Each moment is more powerful than any individual award. But what defines true greatness, individual accolades, or the ability to change everything around you? Drogba's name is mentioned, it's not just about what he achieved, it's about what he transformed. Some players join clubs, and they adapt. they contribute, they leave their mark. But Didier Drogba, he didn't just join Chelsea, he became Chelsea. In doing so, he changed the Premier League, inspired an entire continent, and proved that sometimes one man with the right mentality at the right moment can change absolutely everything. The title says it all. Some players change clubs, but Didier Drogba changed the club. And in changing Chelsea, he changed so much more. But what other player has had this level of impact beyond just football? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more incredible football stories, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos.